Thank you for joining AI Expo Africa, Automation and Intelligence for the Welcome to this presentation. My name is Dr. Loretta Cheeks, the CEO of DS Innovation and Strong Ties. Today, I will give a presentation called Social Influence Model and Migration, a look into online news. Words. The words that we speak are life or death. The words that we speak brings peace or war. They provide strategic frames, cues, communication mechanisms, radio, TV, and of course, the internet. And why? Influence. Vying for the hearts and mind of the people. And those words eventually put through the mechanism of the internet will lead to shifts, movements, and migration. Let's talk about it. Let's take a look at a use case. Rwanda, the genocide. In this short clip, you'll see the impact of words.
Oh, son.
Hi.
Listen to me, good people of Rwanda. Terrible news.
It is true.
Horrible news. Our great president is murdered by the Tutsi cockroaches. They tricked him to sign their phony peace agreement. Then they shot his plane from the sky. It is time to clear the brush, good Hutus of Rwanda. We must cut the tall trees. Cut the tall trees now!
The soldiers are here!
Let us go to work, loyal Hutus.
No. Everyone, stay calm. Stay calm and be quiet.
Find these traitors. Let none of them escape.
Everybody out!
And then we have Greta Thunberg.
How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
What began as an affirmation soon became a social media sensation. Since that day, the hashtag Black Lives Matter has been used more than 12 million times.
Because it was something that it was this type of declaration that had some vulnerability to it. That it was as fundamental as it could get, right? That Black lives have inherent value and worth. Just a simple statement, one that we should be able to say of anyone, of any living thing, that your life has worth, that you matter. And so now I'm grateful for it.
NYPD! Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Part of that work was ensuring there was a witness whenever a black person died in the hands of police. When Eric Garner was choked to death during an arrest and New York police were acquitted, crowdsourced images amplified the community's anger.
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No racist!
Police!
No racist!
Police!
What was his name?
George Floyd!
What was his name?
George Floyd!
What was his name?
George Floyd! George Floyd! George Floyd!
Black lives! Black lives! Thank you.
The laws
So this is what I need you to tell you. Listen, listen. I want you to listen.
Turning our focus for a minute, let's look at the implications of the online news that's propagated through this psychological laboratory as we know it, the internet.
Here's a news article produced by Online News. New welfare queen. Notice government programs, accountability, subsidies, vital to the economy, national well-being. One is pitted as a taker, the other is pitted as a giver. Definitely imbalance. Here we'll talk about understanding social influence and migration paths. This graph shows a depiction of the formal space. As we know, the fathers of the digital computer developed the initial logical machine using a rather formal grammar. The first level of grammatical expressivity the computer machine could understand is propositional logic. This breakthrough led the machine being able to reason as either true or false, and of course we became more sophisticated, right? 100% computational, moving to fuzzy logic now to artificial intelligence. And at this bridge is where we are moving toward where we can understand subjectivity within the body of text. The framing by news sources has the effect of evoking words or a phrase structure of the mind of the reader. These structured over time. The repetitive framing of critical issue in the reader's brain. As repeat frames often, they become normalized, uncertain points in the brains. These ideas are sent through communication channels that have tremendous influence on the perception and of knowledge. When neighboring news sources get the ideas out of by way of adoption and copying, the cumulative effect is double subjectivity. Here, this is what I show. Data are events firsthand, or you can directly. Through our own news, of course, we get these events. They're formal, and they have. Shifting our attention here, approximately 80% of all data today exists in digital form as unstructured text. Emails, online news, social media feeds, contracts, memos, clinical notes, and legal briefs. Much of this unstructured text exists on the internet or is transported over the internet. As mentioned before, the internet is the premier platform for the proliferation of online news and has been compared to a huge social and psychological laboratory. It enables a highly global and connected world, which is greatly transforming computational approaches for exploring online social interactions and thereby society. News sources disseminate online news that operates within a complex and dynamic system via the internet. This system comprises information flows, interactions, and structural variations, which lend to asymmetries and have the tendency to influence society. Online news is a form of narrative unstructured text that embeds and strategic communication frames for shaping and standards, values, attitudes, and beliefs about critical issues. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is promising for discovery of frames. It enables one to unlock latent meanings in unstructured narrative text, Framing, as we know, is a device used to convey latent meanings about an issue. The framing of news articles or news stories provide the context that shapes public interpretation of social and environmental news. It's the battle that shifts opinions, attitudes, and beliefs. And online news articles create an opportunity to discover utility for machine learning. In this approach and the use case that I studied, which is water insecurity, we look at the terms within articles that news sources use as a mechanism for shaping attitudes, values, and beliefs over time. Fully structured data render itself easily to computation. Narrative text, however, is highly unstructured and could represent a nightmare to computational items used with the aim of extracting deep knowledge buried within. One of the main reasons for the complications is the lack of representative model that these data follow. Although humans can understand and even enjoy the concept of such text, the lack of concrete models prohibits the computational treatment of such text. In our approach, the frame theory is used to build representative models of narrative text. Hence, we use the frames that we discovered from the online news that will be used in the social influence and migration model. Went through a machine learning process and to actually train and test. We created a data set, a rich data set using online articles, and went through the process of unstructured text all the way through the data processing, when they clean the data, to vectorization. Latent interrelated features were extracted and generating frame signatures, which is key. We came up with 5 different frame signatures: human interest, conflict, scientific, economic, and authoritative or managerial frame. And then the taste data was used was content analysis that we did prior to. The migration is spatial, temporal, is online news coverage at a regional level, and structured applies directly. That's the temporal. Online news frames migrate with time, setting in motion this cumulative effect of double subjectivity in online news. And scalability. Estimated, as I mentioned before, there are 80% of text is unstructured, 60% per year. Human ability in readability. So humans can read, but we just cannot keep doing that. I model a news framework, articles, and edge connection about it to construct a graph produced in online news. Now, remember that frames are strategic cues and embed bias simplifications that sometimes aren't by the listener or the reader. That's for expressing nodes, and then grammar for expressing relational edge. Here we formulate a model of information feedback on a social system in the framework of models such as cultural dynamics and catastrophe, with an emphasis on biases that emerges as double subjectivity or having this accumulative effect in narrative text. It involves both bias forces, influence for expressing degrees of freedom, and news source capacity to select or affect, or news sources' capacity to be influenced by their nearest neighbor. Changes that affect frame bias intensity, and they are biases for showing attitudes or belief shifts, justice or sense of fairness,
and frame identity.
To take a deeper look at the possibility space, we created an index that allows for moving around and degrees of freedom in this possibility space using our three variables that we're considering, which is frame identity, which is the splitting factor, and as well as justice and amplification. And you can see here through this index, it allows one to actually move around or actually measure the movement or the change based on these three different variables. So it's a very interesting and compelling, very powerful model.
This visualization offers a human-situated representation of the network structure, the rhythmic timing, the growth and shrinkages of the node masses, and the interplay of forces that may give insights into the extent of news sources' involvement in shaping attitudes, values, and beliefs about critical issues over time.
And here I show over time how this model affected different news articles in 2013, 14, and 15. This is a snapshot of time, and it shows the actual influence, the cultural dynamics, as well as the catastrophe actually interplaying in a network. Very powerful. I just focus on two different frame identities or frame types, which are scientific and managerial, and to demonstrate this phenomenon.
This concludes my presentation. Thank you for joining me, and have a wonderful day.